Hey dudes, what's happening, man? Today a question came in from Mr. Lobster. Mr. Lobster wants to know, I mainly do stylized paintings. Seeing I can't really produce any photorealistic artwork consistently, it's really made me doubt any hope of landing a concept artist position at a AAA studio. Can I find well-paying jobs at studios with stylized work? Man, I don't know where you got it in your head that you got to do photorealistic. I mean, Blizzard Entertainment is a stylized game studio, okay? Riot Games is a stylized game studios, okay? Epic Games is a stylized game studio. There are a whole lot of stylized game studios that you could work for if you do stylized environment concept art. I know this because I've been doing this for a long time, and style is one of those things that goes in and out all the time. When I was working at Capcom, and this was in 2003, they're like, stylized games are dead. Then World of Warcraft comes out, and bam, like I think 50 different MMOs, stylized MMOs started development that year in like 2006. So right now the trend is leaning more towards this more photorealistic style. And the reason for that is because it's cheaper to develop for. It's cheaper to develop photorealistic game worlds because all you need are photos, or you need photo bashing concept artists that get a lot of detail in their designs very quickly because they're using photos. If you're looking to work on Tomb Raider, or you're looking to work on Last of Us, or one of these big AAA game studios where they do photorealistic stuff, it would be insane to try to paint that. You have to do photo bashing. Ironically, people jump right into photo bashing without learning the fundamentals of painting, and then their photo bashing stuff looks like garbage too because they have no understanding of perspective, lighting, material, or even how to create depth in their shots, or even composition. There's so much confusing misinformation about this out there, and I would say that, man, like, if you really gravitate more towards stylized work, embrace it, love it, cherish it, and excel at it as much as possible. Like, really run with it and find the studio that's a better match for you. And it shouldn't matter whether it's an indie game studio or a mobile game studio or a big, huge AAA game studio like a Blizzard or a Riot or something, or whoever's next. These new studios pop up all the time, and you never know, man. In 2 years, there might be some massive studio that we don't even know that they exist right now. But tomorrow it's like the biggest thing ever, and everybody's still chasing what was popular yesterday. And that's like, that's a trap that just half of the industry is falling into right now. Everybody's chasing what was popular yesterday. And the best gamble that you can take with your career is to do the thing that you're at least passionate about. Because the worst thing that you could do is get wrapped up in trying to chase after a goal that you never even wanted to begin with. And I almost fell trapped to that. I did for a couple of years. I got way off course. I started pursuing art styles that I had no interest in. But before you know it, I've got a reputation for working really well in that style. And it's nothing like anything like what I want to be doing. So I was very unhappy doing the work, but I had a lot of work. So to answer your question outright, hell yeah. Yeah, man, there are a lot of really good, solid, steady paying jobs at stylized game studios. In fact, a lot of times the more stylized games are made for all ages. And most of the time those all ages games are service-based games like your Fortnites and your League of Legends, for example. You see in a pattern here? You see in how they need constant updates. They need to constantly be adding environments. They need to constantly be adding characters. They need to constantly be into adding skins and things like that. So they're constantly looking for talented people who are enthusiastic about their games and the style of games that they make. People hate when I say this, but there is a shortage of concept artists for environments in the game industry. There is a shortage of qualified environment concept artists out there. And the biggest reason for that is probably the lack of education about it. And I don't mean that to slam anybody. I just mean that, when you look at ArtStation, who's deciding what goes to the top of ArtStation? Not necessarily game developers. So, if your work is really popular on ArtStation, you might be totally unemployable at a game studio. And in fact, I like to find the people who have really strong ideas and do a lot of iterative sketch designs. And I find these I feel like they're almost beaten down. It's like these artists that are just not appreciated for the quality of their ideas, because everybody just wants to appreciate artists that render really pretty, but that's only part of it. You know, you can learn to render really pretty, but it's much harder to learn how to be creative and think creatively, and also in how to think about how to infuse story and make a world feel lived in. With enough time, you can teach anybody the technical method to render metals, or how to render cloth, or how to render or calculate lighting. It's very technical. It's very like structured, but thinking creatively is not so structured. Communicating function or communicating the actual motion of a mechanical arm, for instance, that's not something that's so easily taught from a technical standpoint. It has to be something that requires you to develop the muscle of your mind that's like your creative muscle. The same way that you would work out a muscle at the gym, you have to work out your creative mind. And that's going to supersede all style. And you see this in some examples, like when you look at Horizon Zero Dawn. I mean, they hired very stylized concept artists in some cases, and they were able to, you know, modify their stylized work into a more photorealistic kind of a model. Or even when you look at something like Metal Gear Solid. I mean, Yoji Shinkawa's artwork is not realistic. It's not photorealistic at all. But his design work is really strong. Of course, it has to go through a lot of different artists to reach the point where it gets to look like a final in-game realistic looking model. It's still a stylized realism. And honestly, you don't see much of that with new art directors. The younger art directors do tend to want it to look exactly like the drawings or the concept art, which is why I recommend that you try to make your concept art look as much like a screenshot as possible to maximize your employment these days. You know, whatever art style you're drawing in should look like the final in-game model. It should look as close as possible to that, or you should be striving for that every day. You can't expect the game art style to change because of you, unless if you're already a famous independent artist, which most of us are not. A lot of times when people are starting out their career, they're looking up to people who've already established themselves. Obviously, you would, right? But they go into it thinking that they get to call shots the way that that guy or that girl got to call their own shots. And it doesn't really work that way. You don't get to call shots until you've proven yourself, until you've proven that you know what you're doing, and until you've gotten the leverage to the point where they're coming to you for your expertise. When you're starting out, ain't nobody coming to you for your expertise. And when you're starting out, you're a cog in a machine. When you're starting out, you've got to fit into somebody else's vision. And that sucks for the person who's just starting out, because it's like, oh man, you know, I don't want to have to do it their way. But guess what? When you're starting out, you're the one who needs a job, okay? And on top of that, once you've established yourself and you're paying somebody else to do work, you're going to tell them the same thing. You're going to say, hey, you know, do it the way that I know how to do it. Do it my way, because you're the one holding the clout. And when you no longer need the work is when you get to call all the shots. And that is a very elaborate answer to what would otherwise be considered probably a simple question of whether or not there's jobs for stylized artists. Yeah, man, there's jobs for every style of art. And sometimes it's just about finding your market, finding the audience. And that, when I say find your market, sometimes I'm talking about find the employer who appreciates you. Okay. Find the employer who appreciates what you do well. So just do what you do really well, and then seek out people who would want to employ somebody who does what you do really well. But I'll tell you what, if you're listening to a photorealistic master, he's going to tell you photorealistic is the only way to go. If you're listening to somebody who's like me, that's more of a stylized artist, that's had some successes in that field, I'm going to tell you what I just told you, you know. So you got to pay attention and consider where the source is coming from, you know. And with that in mind, also recognize that, you know, you could just start your own company and your own stylized games, you know, making your own stylized games. And that's just my opinion. That's my advice. I'm a very independent person, independent thinker. I don't tend to just go along with whatever the trend is. I like to anticipate and try to sidestep or create my own path. And that might not be you, you know, but I don't recommend that you chase whatever's popular right now. I think that's a bad move. If you like the art that you're seeing in this here video, I've got a bunch of art books that I've been making. Those are available over on Amazon or on my Gumroad channel. And if you're interested in learning how I do it and you want to do this kind of artwork yourself, well, tutorials for this kind of stuff are in my box set of tutorials volume. Gosh, we're up to volume 6 now. That's the 2020 box set. And dudes, that's it for me on this week's video. I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to ask questions in the comments below. And dudes, until next time, I'll catch y'all. Manyan de bon. Ciao, baby. Oh, yeah.